fighting against oppression. Ooh, yeah, battering down depression. Oh yeah, oh, are you ready to stand up and fight the right revolution? Are you ready to stand up and fight it just like soldiers? Many are called, few are chosen. Many are called, few are chosen. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Oh, gotta fight the right fight in this time. Yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Are you ready to stand up and fight the right revolution? Are you ready to stand up and fight it just like soldiers? Many are called, few are chosen. Many are called, few are chosen. If you wanna live forever, you gotta love each other. Say you gotta live on forever. Yeah. Love one another. Gotta find the right fight till this time. Oh, live on forever. Love each other. We gotta live on forever. And love one another. Oh, yeah. Living, loving, and sharing again. Oh,
good morning, and good afternoon there, folks. It's a little Dennis Brown on this Saturday morning chop shop. A little bit late today, a little birthday time going on. Thank you so very much for all the folks that's on Facebook and down here in the listening lounge, just shouting out the birthday there for me. Yeah, 1 year older, one more year on this earth. I tell you what, as you saw the title there, racism. So, I think at my age, over 50 something, I'm not going to tell you the rest. Over 50 something, I got a right to speak on the racism in this country because I see it through my own eyes, especially growing up in the South. A lot of things that I've seen over the years, I have to question as a young boy and as a grown man, really, white folks really do think like this. And what dare I say, the insurrection or the treasonous acts that was bestowed upon this country January 6th, and now that they are talking about it at the impeachment trial, it just shows you the layer after layer after layer that we've had to peel back in this country to expose racism for what it is. And actually, the folks that's been perpetrating this fraud for years and years and years, as Malcolm X said, the chickens have finally come home to roost. You can't go around Earth. Well, basically, this planet, what's in fact the history of white America and white civilization. Again, everywhere they go, you find a nice blood trail. I'm gonna say nice blood trail, but they've killed somebody, maimed a country, blew up a country. Let's think about some of the places that I've been. For those of you that's ever been in Japan, there's a place called Peace Park in Hiroshima. We all know about what happened in Hiroshima. We can go back to the history of enslaved people here, indentured slaves. We can go back to the Salem witch hunts. We can go back through the Trail of Tears here in this country, where Indians was forced to march from one part of the country to the other. No food, no clothes, no shelter, no nothing. Millions of them died along the way, men, women, and children. We've seen the way that they've treated their own kind. It's manifested itself right here with this impeachment trial. That you saw what Donald Trump was willing to sacrifice folks that basically was up under his hand until, I guess that thing of democracy outweighed the loyalty of Trump. Don't want to talk about the guy too much because he's only one person, and it takes a whole lot more of Donald Trump's to make this thing that they called white supremacy work to such perfection as it has, especially in this country. You look at the other world leaders and other countries and some of their news headlines. The United States really has no reason to call themselves the defenders of the earth when their very front yard is a mess. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't see how you could go and tell another country they're being ruled the wrong way or treated the wrong way when it's been happening in this country since the break of dawn. I could basically get to say, at the age of being over 50, growing up in Charleston, South Carolina, surrounding areas, there was a lot of places at 9, 10, even up into 18 that I couldn't go when I went to school the first time in Meridian, Mississippi. Going to you think you're going downtown and the road divides in two ways. The blacks have to drive down this road and the whites can get to go down to the main part of town, shop in the stores, do what they do, wash their clothes or whatever. But the black folks that I lived around us, we only had one section of town that we could go through. Now, if that is not racism at its best, I don't know what is. I was on the stream the other day, and a couple of folks was on there with me, and we had a debate about racism, and unfortunately it turned into a pissing contest to where no matter what you talk about, some of these folks over there want to talk about nothing but the girls. And I say to them of nothing when it comes to nothing but the girls. You name me one thing that black men have gone through in this country that black women haven't. I'll wait. Was they not slaves along with us? They did not march in the 60s and in the 70s? Were they not raped? Were they not hung? Were they not murdered? Name one thing that black men went through that black women haven't gone through in this country. I don't think you can find too many things when it comes to demeaning a population. I don't think that's humanly possible to try and separate the two. But again, when you're dealing with racism, that's the best way to do it. Divide and conquer. They divided us, conquer us. You know what I mean? Even so much so the young brother Dre was talking the other day on his stream how folks that look like us is one of the main contributors to why we are here to begin with. Yeah, the white settlers had to go over there with the Bible, but somebody had to help them round up them slaves. Somebody had to show them who was the strongest village or this or that. Somebody profited off our misery, all the way from the shores of Africa, all the way to the shores of the United States. So that is racism at its very core. Who's in control? Who has the power? And I always say to some white folks when they say, well, racism is, well, walk a day in my shoes. See if you say that tomorrow. We don't have racism. Well, you see all kinds of mixed couples these days. And there's a guy that was in the Proud Boys, got a black wife. Does that make him any less racist? No, it doesn't. It just means he got a bed wench. And it means he's just using her as a prop. That's how I see it. You can't have it both ways. You can't go around screaming you hate black folks and then lay in the bed with one. Which one is it? Don't know. But anyway, folks, let me get to this first clip here and check this out. It's a relatively old clip, but a lot of us may have never seen it. So I'm going to pull up to my first clip here of Dr. James Baldwin speaking. I used part of his clip on Wednesday's show with On the Beat with myself and Char Willie. And here's another excerpt from that. So let me pull up this file right quick. I think I'm getting a little better at this newfangled kind of way of doing things. Let me go over to here and I'll put that in right there. Okay, I got that. Now let me slide over to, nope, there we go. I'm gonna get it right. Here we go. No volume. Wait a minute. I got it. Just keep watching, folks. I got it. Got to get some volume here. Wait a minute. I got it. Okay.
No matter how it comes about, it will be bloody. It will be hard. I still believe that we can do with this country something that has not been done before. We are misled here because we think of numbers. You don't need numbers. You need passion. And this is proven by the history of the world. The tragedy is that most of the people who say they care about it do not care. What they care about is their safety and their profits. This is the formula for a nation or kingdom decline. For no kingdom can maintain itself by force alone. Force does not work the way its advocates think. In fact, it does. It does not, for example, reveal to the victim the strength of the adversary. On the contrary, it reveals the weakness, even the panic of the adversary. And this revelation invests the victim with passion.
Most of the women I've ever encountered, really, had a Negro friend or a Negro maid in high school, but they never, or rarely, after school was over or whatever, came to my kitchen. We were segregated from the schoolhouse door. Therefore, he doesn't know. He really does not know what it was like for me to leave my house, leave the school and go back to Harlem. He doesn't know how Negroes live. And it comes as a great surprise to the Kennedy brothers and to everybody else in the country. I'm certain, again, that like most white Americans I have, encountered, they have I'm sure they have nothing whatever against Negroes. That's really not the question. The question is really a kind of apathy and ignorance, which is a price we pay for segregation. That's what segregation means. You don't know what's happening on the other side of the wall because you don't want to know. I can't be a pessimist because I'm alive. To be a pessimist means that you have agreed that human life is an academic matter. So I'm forced to be an optimist. I'm forced to believe that we can survive whatever we must survive. But the Negro in this country, the future of the Negro in this country is precisely as bright or as dark as the future of the country. It is entirely up to the American people and our representatives. It is entirely up to the American people whether or not they're going to face and deal with and embrace this stranger whom they maligned so long. What white people have to do is try to find out in their own hearts why it was necessary to have a nigger in the first place. Because I'm not a nigger. I'm a man. But if you think I'm a nigger, it means you need it. The question you've got to ask yourself, the white population of this country has got to ask itself, north and south, because it's one country, and for a Negro, there is no difference in the north and the south. There's just a difference in the way they castrate you. But the fact of the castration is the American fact. If I'm not the nigger here, and you invented him, you, the white people, invented him, And you got to find out why. And the future of the country depends on that, whether or not it's able to ask that question.
Heroes, as far as I could see, were white, and not merely because of the movies, but because of the land in which I lived, of which movies were simply a reflection. I despised and feared those heroes because they did take vengeance into their own hands. They thought vengeance was theirs to take. And yes, I understood that. My countrymen were my enemy. I suspect that all these stories are designed to reassure us that no crime was committed. We made a legend out of a massacre.
Did you understand that, folks? He said these heroes were put in place to give white America the idea that there was no crimes committed. And clearly there was. Those were crimes against humanity. When you saw actors like John Wayne, when you saw actors like I won't say Mel Brooks, but different folks like that that would be heroes in these cowboys and Indian movies, to where you would go into the stores and you would see the cowboy and Indian place that the Indians had knives where the cowboys had their rifles, long rifles. That's an unequal fight, don't you agree? If you could ride on a wagon and pick someone off at 60, 70 yards, I don't know a man's arms that long yet. So who had the upper hand doing these so-called culture wars, these fights for freedom? Hey, Chandra, how you doing? Right, Clint Eastwood as well. Like Chuck D said, Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant shit to me. You see, straight out racist, simple and plain. Mother F him and John Wayne. You know, again, more hidden history, folks. And this is history that, although we don't like seeing it, it's a necessary evil that we know about it. Because growing up as a kid, you know, John Wayne, according to the American way of living, John Wayne was the consummate American hero. What's his name? Douglas MacArthur was the consummate American hero. What's the other guy's name? I'm trying to think of his name right now. Churchill and all these other folks. But again, they despised black people, and they didn't make any bones about it. Again, I spoke on the one viewing of that Woodrow Wilson did in the White House called The Birth of a Nation. He called it one of the greatest cinematic movies of all time. But the movie itself celebrated the degradation and killing of black men. It put us on Front Street to being absolutely nothing. So imagine if folks during these times and these days are easy to be swayed. Imagine how easy they were to be swayed back then. Imagine hearing the President of the United States say this is one of the greatest movies ever, A Birth of a Nation, where the Klan rode into town saving the white women. But I never got that about black men. I never got that about white men. They say they're saving the virtuoso of white ladies, but yet go into a little farther into white man's history. White women are the one that they are persecuting. So explain that one. That's kind of like an oxymoron. We're going to save the white women from the brothers, from the Negroes, from the black man, just to kill them or rape them or treat them as subhuman for our own accord. That's how I saw it, and that's how I still see it. Thank you very much there, Chandra. Yep, 1 year older, my man. Some say 1 year older, some say 1 year wiser, but, you know, I've been around enough to know that, you know, not every day is a good day. Not every day is a bad day. It's happened to be one of those good ones. Is, you know, I have don't tell nobody, but I have someone that celebrates this day with me, my twin. So as most people are coming to the world alone, fortunately, I came in with a buddy. You know, but But this thing that they call racism again, I was on a panel the other day, and I thought, for the most part, we were making some headway with some of the younger brothers, because that's really why I really do this. I mean, that's why I put the post on Facebook when it comes to Black history, because some of us don't know. And when I use the word ignorant, I don't mean using the ignorant as in your their ability to learn. You're just ignorant to the facts that you don't know. There's so much of our history that sits right in front of us every day that we take for granted, but because we don't know about it, we don't think about it. Well, a Black man invented that. Something as simple as that little metal thing that you scoop out ice cream with. Black man invented that. Our history is, dare I say this, I don't know why they want to keep calling it Black history. It is Black history, true enough. But it's basically what it boils down to in its rarest and purest form. It's American history. We are the majority of us in this country right now that call ourselves Black Americans. We're born here. Our parents were born here. Our great grandparents were born here. Yeah, we do have a kinship with our folk in Africa because that's where we came from, but that goes with everyone. You remember when the DNA thing became popular and a lot of these white folks found out where they came from? They shit bricks. Yeah, I got some black blood in me for real. Well, your carbon dating should have told you that. If you believe everything else about carbon dating, why don't you believe that black folks were the first people on this planet? I don't understand why not. Good morning, Lady Neek. How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. I don't understand why you would think that you, as white society, determines what's right and what's wrong. I don't understand how you could subjugate a whole race of people to think that even the lowest of the white folks are better than the greatest of a black man. The greatness of us. If you listened to the radio show the other day, I gave you 15 examples of inventions that were created by black people that never stepped a day in a classroom. That's what they say about invention. It's the mother of necessity. You think Eli Whitney had a reason to invent the cotton gin? No, I think the slaves had a reason. Got tired of getting that whip cracked on them. We got to find out something to get these seeds out these a little bit easier. Let's take it to the massa. Let's take it to Mr. Whitney and see what he says. Oh, you know what? Y'all might have a winner here. Like they say, the only thing that the American way of life invented was the patent office. You see it in movies. You see it in music. You see it in art. You see it in religion. Everything about us, everything about black people that white folks considered great, they now use. This case in point, let's bring this right up to date where we're at right now. January 6th, we all know if those were Black life protesters at that Capitol building, we would probably still be counting the amount of people that was either maimed or killed that day. There would be no impeachment trial. The only trials that would be going on are the people that are being held in these jails pending their trials. That's what this nation would be focused on now. Because even if you go back to, I don't know if you folks been watching this impeachment coverage, but when the lawyers for Donald Trump came up there, and the very first thing they showed was nothing but black folks against Trump. He used Maxine, well, not black and brown folks. He used Maxine Waters. He used AOC. He used Al Green, not the singer Al Green, but the Congressman Al Green. And they flashed that on the screen. So who was he connecting to when they were saying they are against us? Who were they talking to? They was talking to the white race, Donald Trump's followers, against black and brown America. They are against us. They stole the election from us. So much so that they put into their folds a woman This Marjorie Taylor Greene, a known racist, a known QAnon follower, and they allowed her and they elected her into Congress anyway. Who put her there? You can't get into Congress without votes, not unless someone dies and someone gets to choose your seat, or the president. In this case, Biden had to give up his seat for somebody. But again, if you look at this election as at this, I'm gonna call it an election, this insurrection as a whole, they don't have us as enemies anymore. They can't say this happened, this black folks caused this. They have to look at each other now. They can't say, well, if it had not been for these bunch of black people at the Capitol that day, our democracy would be safe. No, they are fighting each other. This is a prelude. This could have been a prelude to the second Civil War here in this country. And by all intents and purposes, if you've seen the footage, it was. It really was. Those folks went into that Capitol building to kill, maim, and murder. Hang Mike Pence, one of their own. So imagine what they would have done to one of us. You know, I no disrespect to the Capitol policemen that lost their life, but what happened to Blue Lives Matter? Because wasn't that what they were chanting one time or the other? Blue lives do matter until it gets in your way, until it stops your agenda. Can you argue that point? Because those insurrectionists, those treasonous acts that you saw on January 6th, and the cover up that's going on now, to where why don't we just sweep it under the rug? Can't we all just get along? That's a farce. Donald Trump might not be the head figure anymore, but believe me, there's somebody standing in the wings to take his spot. There's someone that might be a little bit more smarter, or a little bit more clandestine about what they're doing. Donald Trump is a narcissist. He had to be on Front Street. He craves attention. He loves the glory. He loves the loyal subject that bow down to him. That was a drug for him. So he couldn't help but put himself on Front Street. But if you imagine if we get somebody like Vladimir Putin, who just like to lay back in the cut, that does things so covertly that you don't know it until it hits you. Think about all the things that the last administration tried to strip away. Everything that Obama put in place. I'm not saying that Obama was a great president and he did all he could for black people, but what he did do, he made sure that everybody had some kind of health coverage, and that was the main focus of these folks. They loathe black people into a self of reassurance that COVID-19 was not killing black folks; it was killing white folks. When all actuality, from its onset, it was murdering us by the day, by the hour. Because when you think black, and if you think black society, you think New York, you think Chicago, you think Atlanta, you think Memphis, you think Charlotte. And if you go back to the early stages of the pandemic, those were the hardest hit places, especially New York. New York City, the Bronx, Harlem. Predominantly black parts of our country. That's where the pandemic hit the worst at. And we wonder why Donald Trump did not want that to be, he didn't want the pandemic to be, solved so quickly, because it was doing exactly what he wanted it to do, eliminating black folks. Hundreds and thousands by the day. Remember, there were some days that there was over 2,000 people dying. Every 5 minutes that person had died. In the month of, I think it was March and April, every 5 minutes someone died from COVID-19. Black and brown people. But when we get over to these sides of these streets here, and we're able to put out information like that, we got to go through the riffraff of those over there that want to do nothing but talk about the women. And there's a whole lot more important things that we should be telling our young brothers and our young sisters. I think I earned the right to do that because just about the amount of time that I've been on this earth, I've survived this cultural, racial war. Again, for all the uniforms that we saw, well, I'm going to call them uniforms, but anything about the Black Panther parties, where do you find it at? In a museum. And if anyone starts talking about Black Lives Matter or putting together this or that, they summarily bring the police force down on us with a vengeance. You saw that during the George Floyd riots during the summertime, and you also saw the difference on January 6th because they knew that riot was coming. They didn't know of it that week. They knew of that in 6 months in advance. And I ask myself now, during this time, before and after, why was that place so undemand? Why was it was able to be attacked so quickly? Because the powers that be wanted it that way. You hear them folks and throughout these clips. I'm not going to play them today, but if you go and listen to some of the clips, you hear some of the things that these white folks were saying. You know, Black man, they're doing his job. He gets called the N-word over 30 times in less than a 10-minute time span. You hear some of the politicians tell their story about how they were fearing for their life, cowered in a corner somewhere. And we got to add, and then folks got the nerve to ask us, can we move on? No, you can't move on from this. There's got to be a day of reckoning. You can't move on from this. Somebody need to be held to bear, because if not, it's going to be worse next time. And Black folks, I fear we will be the target of them next time. This is a war that we need to stay out of. Let them kill themselves. No disrespect, but let them do what they do to themselves. It is what it is. That's what Trump said. It is what it is. In the hospitals, you see Black people getting treated under not getting treated at all. That's the best way to put that. Getting turned away at the hospital. Well, they're about to die anyway, so just go ahead and send them back home. Ain't no sense in putting them on a respirator. Or getting turned away at the hospital. Scores of Black people. Meanwhile, the lowest of low of white society, all they had to do is get a cough. Well, put him in a room. And I'm not making none of this up. Black nurses that's trying to keep the white folks alive are dying from this disease. Not from the disease itself, but from the neglect of proper health care. So you wonder why the Trump administration was so hell-bent on ending Obamacare? I don't get some of the doggone things that that we have to fight for. I'll take it all the way back to, when you're listening to these impeachment hearings, they're all talking about the Constitution. And not to say that I'm any kind of scholar, but I think that's a document that's archaic now. They use it either to protect themselves or to bring somebody down. And you see both sides of that right there in this courtroom. The House impeachment managers are using the Constitution to try and convict Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's lawyers are using the Constitution to try to prove his innocence. That's a hell of a deal, isn't it? You get the both worlds from one document that was never intended for us. Lift every voice, huh? That's the Black song. Is that the new Black song now? That's what we're supposed to be singing now instead of Kumbaya. I'm just saying. Let's go on to our next clip here, folks. I don't want to talk. Well, I guess this is a good time to talk your ear off because I'm not on radio today. So this is a good time to talk your ear off. Let's go to my next clip here. And this one is on the funny side. I don't want to be too serious throughout, but this one is kind of on the funny side of a Karen. Got to bring them in, even during the pandemic, even when they know wearing a mask by no stretch of the imagination helps curb the COVID-19 transmission. There's still folks out there, predominantly white women, that will come up with any excuse not to wear a mask. When I say any, I mean any. Check this out.
No, not recording. Oh, sorry. I got it though, just in case. Just
Alrighty, here comes Canada Karen.
all right. So you need to wear a mask. If you don't, you need to leave our store. I've asked you many times politely. You need to leave our store.
So I have a medical exemption with the
Right, but I
doctor's
am
note.
told that nobody gets a medical exemption in our store.
Rumbling through the checkout line with her Karen-ness.
That is what I am
Okay,
told, and I am
Alberta
doing my job.
government, Alberta
I am doing
government
my job,
offers an
yes.
exemption for
You
those who have
people
a
like you
medical
make our
exemption.
job very difficult.
I appreciate the frontline worker giving it to her straight.
I
I'm
just
a
am trying to buy
17-year-old
some
girl.
food.
I'm a 17-year-old girl, and I'm asking you, a grown woman, to wear a mask.
And oh, that one stings.
Put it on or leave.
Are you my doctor?
No, but I'm telling you to put
My
it on or
doctor
leave.
has told me not
Put it
to.
on or leave.
The fact she has to debate public health and safety with a grown Karen is pathetic, but hey, they come in all shapes and sizes.
Then you need to go.
No.
You're on the phone with the cops right now, and you will
And
wait for
as
them
you
to
know
pick
that
you
you are
up.
discriminating against me because
I'm
of
not
my
discriminating
disability.
against you, miss.
Yes, you are.
I'm asking you to
I
do
have a
something politely.
disability
Yes, the disability argument.
and I
I'm sorry,
cannot
I
wear
am
a
told
mask.
by my boss not to let you shop here if you don't wear a mask. I'm told by these
So
rules.
can I see a copy of your policy then,
I
please?
don't have it with me, miss.
I would like
If
to
you
see a
would like
copy
to
of
come
your
back
policy.
tomorrow,
So Alberta Canada Karen pulls out all the tricks here.
Get away from me. I'm going to say thank you. Do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see it? I'm just trying to get
Put a mask on.
Put a mask on.
Put a mask on.
I have asthma.
There's a pandemic.
Same with this anti-masker.
Why don't you people educate yourself? You need some. How am I doing? Am I pretty cute?
And this one, the underlying theme, the most crucial piece of intel these anti-maskers overlook is this. Private companies have the right to turn customers away, and patrons have the right to choose which establishments they'll give their business. Here's a great point via the Daily Dot. Like many videos of anti-masker confrontations, this TikTok highlights the uncomfortable position the pandemic has put employees in, having to choose between ignoring people breaking the rules and threatening the safety of everyone or risking a verbal or even physical confrontation with these people who are often geared up for an argument of some sort when they arrive. Exactly. They're going in looking for a fight. Another great way of phrasing it, you're infringing on my rights. Not true. Here's what a constitutional scholar had to say. So the question is, would a limit on your expressive freedoms not to wear a mask, is that reasonable during a pandemic during which a government is trying to control the communicable spread of a deadly disease? He says those limits are considered reasonable, and though the matter could be brought before a court of law, it would be almost impossible to be used to overturn any rules or regulations that have been put in place to protect the greater population. Not that they couldn't make the challenge, but the prospect of a court of law looking at the current public health emergency in which over 500 Albertans have died, in which sometimes there are more than a dozen deaths in a day, in which there are thousands and thousands of infected persons, and say that the health measures was an unconstitutional infringement on somebody's liberty not to wear a mask, said the scholar. Most importantly, the wearing of masks has become a catalyst for political conflict, an arena where scientific evidence is often viewed through a partisan lens. Look, stateside, we've had our issues with anti-maskers, not only claiming this, but the ADA printing on their website, COVID-19 alert, fraudulent face mask flyers. The anti-maskers are fabricating their own movement through curating these fake cards, which have appeared on various social mediums. Basically, they are fulfilling people's false needs into something that does not exist.
Now imagine that, folks. Imagine these folks going to that much of a length not to just simply put on a mask. The mask does two things, folks, and I'm sure we as grown black folks, we understand this. Listen, I'm going to go and I must use this disclaimer one time. For those white folks right now that it's either going to listen to this broadcast or that are listening now, if I am making you uncomfortable, check yourself. Don't come at me. Don't leave bad comments down. Check yourself, because you don't see black people going into stores without masks. If I even get in my car, I don't care who's in the car with me. I put my mask on. That saves me the time of having to stop what I'm doing to walk into the store. I already got my mask on. How hard is that to take 2 strings, loop over your ear, and pull a mask over your mouth and nose? And that could prevent somebody that you don't even know from dying. How hard is that? That calls to that thing that they call white privilege. They act like it don't exist, but it does. And there's 4 examples of it right there. You're in a pandemic where you see the news where people are dying at rapid rates, not every month, every day in the month of, let me see, I want to say, I think in the month of June and July, just as many people that was killed in the Twin Towers fiasco. That's what we lost every day. That's what we lose every day. Who's calling me now? See there? I don't have time to talk to you. Bye. Anyway, folks, my apologies about that. But again, you know, white privilege. Even though they know I'm on the line, they still call it. I need to talk to you now. But anyway, folks, again, I'm not trying to pick at any particular ethnic group, but white folks, come on. Yeah, you're right. Hello, birthday guy. I can type that. Some of them call to pick at me. Like I said, my family calls me Papa Smurf, and I haven't shaved in a couple of days, so that little gray and salt pepper beard is starting to really, really come out. It's like, oh yeah, you do look like. Oh, go put on some blue jeans and a blue shirt, some white tennis shoes. No, but getting back to what I was saying, again, I'm not. Am I trying to single out any one particular white person? No, there's enough of you that y'all know who I'm talking about. These four white women, the easiest thing they could have done, instead of sitting up arguing with the clerk, is bad enough that a 17-year-old child got to tell a grown woman to wear a mask. That's bad enough. But they pull out all the stops. I got asthma. But the one white woman, you say she got asthma, but all her belly hanging out. Come on. If you got asthma, lose some weight. That might help your breathing. But I'm sure, regardless of whether you have asthma or not, it's not going to kill you for the amount of time that you are in that store, to put something that not only protects you, but it protects everybody around you. But this is the ongoing theme when they're not out harassing black folks, but with selling water and other thing, they are going in stores like they got a right to. I don't have to put a mask on. I'm different from everybody else in this country. And that's what it boils down to. They really think they are. They really think they are different. They think they have a special place in the United States, that they got carte blanche to do anything. That's why these folks were so comfortable about storming the Capitol, because they thought they had a right to. We know better. They don't. Some of us just don't fall for anything. Just because you said do it, that don't mean we're going to go out and do it. You go tell me to jump off a building, I'm going to look at you like, man, you must be out your damn mind. You going to tell me to go storm the Capitol for what? What's that going to do? I don't get it. But, again, I'm not speaking to the mass population of folks. Y'all know who I'm speaking to. White folks, black folks included. I'm speaking to the Karens. I'm speaking to these senators who don't think that Donald Trump hadn't done any wrong. I'm speaking to the Proud Boys. I'm speaking to all of these white folks out here that believe they got a right to. I notice for every time I do a stream like this and I go back to my Facebook page, I see that somebody that used to be on my page ain't there anymore. Along with a little nasty gram. I'm going to stop following you. Okay, do that. That's good. I would much rather you do, so at least I know where one of my enemies are at. But, and again, when you start talking about the uplift and changing the way society looks at us as black people, they get mad. And I've heard this over and over and over from scholars and from people just like me and you, that most of us believe that white people are mad because we simply refuse to be slaves anymore. We simply refuse to be held under their foot anymore. We ain't your belly warmers. We ain't your bed wenches. We're not going to allow you to steal our inventions anymore. We're not going to allow you to castrate us and keep us locked up in a basement somewhere while you take all the glory and the credit for the things that we've invented and done over the years. We're not going to allow that anymore. That day of reckoning for that part of white America, that white supremacist racist part of America, that day of reckoning is now here. They say with any great society, it always falls from within. And I do believe that's what's happening to the United States of America. Number one being the Senate. It is falling from within. Kevin McCarthy knew that Donald Trump did not want that insurrection stopped. But what did he do? Instead of informing the American people about it, he kept it to himself. Tried to convince the American people that he was not on the side of Donald Trump. He was on the side of right. Although he knew that Donald Trump could have stopped that insurrection at any moment, he actually got on the phone with Trump and said, hey, these are your people. These are not Antifas. These are not Black Lives Matters. These are your people. Go see what he said to Kevin McCarthy. Yes, there's a lot of folks mad about the election results. Too bad you're not as upset. This is in the hallowed halls of where the rules that govern us are made every day. If it's chaos there, why wouldn't it be chaos anywhere else in the country? Let's take a look at another clip here. While I'm digging this clip up, again, I want to thank everybody on Facebook and on the YouTube and all the my brothers and sisters that sent me their messages, and nieces and nephews that sent me the birthday wishes today. I really thank y'all so very much. Yep, another day on this earth. Like I always say, you know, how is that? Every day above ground is a good one. It sure is. All right, here we go right here. Check this next clip out there, folks.
If you put God, eventually come to believe it. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is time to expose the big lie parading around like the truth. I call Mr. Race to the stand and charge him with second-degree murder, the statutory rape of nations, and the assault and battery on the innocent minds of the youth. Your Honor, I know we don't have much time, so if you don't mind, I will provide you the proof.
Proceed.
Folks, we are here today to get a conviction because you, Sir Race, are the worst human infliction. You're a sickness. You've committed so many crimes, so many you've killed. And the sad part about it is, don't look away. You're not even real.
Objection. What is he talking about? My client is very real. Sustained. What do you mean, son? Don't turn my courtroom into a circus.
Your Honor, just give me some time. I will tell you the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. The defendant here should be charged with perjury and fraud. He's a facade. Mr. Race, I studied your history. There's no evidence that you actually existed before the 15th century. Yet you have everyone convinced that you're real, but you're a myth, a fabrication, a trick. Because before then, there was no such thing as white people, black people, none of that shit.
Watch your mouth, son, or I'll throw you in jail.
Excuse me, Your Honor. What I'm saying is, back then, people did discriminate against, but it was on the basis of where you were from, your religion, not color. Until the rich landowners looked around and got nervous. They saw they were outnumbered by the African slaves and European indentured servants who, by the way, were starting to join forces. So they wondered, how do we split these poor people up? Because if we don't, they will cause a crisis. We won't survive it. And it was at that moment they created an evil concept called whiteness. So, Mr. Race, you're just a tool, an idea made up to divide us. When I say us, I mean working. Ladies and gentlemen, they basically did us like Hunger Games. We got played. The divide and conquer scheme was to make white people fight black people so that they could protect the green. Then they used fake science to justify murdering human beings by making them subhuman. Check the 3/5 compromise. Their philosophy was to prove the inferiority of minorities with a science called craniometry. 1847, Josiah Nott wrote a science book called Niggerology. All of this nonsense was used to justify racist ideologies. And it wasn't just blacks. It was Native American, Japanese. I suggest you read the Chinese Exclusionary Act. See, if you can trick people to believe that another group of people are genetically inferior without a doubt, you can exploit them in any way you want to, because it doesn't count. Let me give you an example. Judge, you know the word bitch means female dog, right?
Yes, I would.
But do you know when that word was first used to refer to a person? It was used to describe the black woman, because they said she was lower than a dog. It figures when you consider the slave auction pictures said that black women didn't have kids, they had litters. The evil continued with eugenics. It was so wrong. Later, public lynchings became entertainment. It was like watching Monday Night Football. Mr. Race, you even infected the founding fathers with your devilish separatist rhetoric. The same men who wanted freedom committed acts like terrorists. They owned slaves and were prejudiced. Every president from Washington to Jefferson.
Objection, for God's sake, that was a different time. That's just what was accepted then.
That's right, and I'm not pressing it. I just wonder, if they truly thought blacks were animals, why the heck did they still have sex with them?
You think you can beat me with facts? You're gonna have to do better than that. Blacks and minorities are inferior, period. Don't make me laugh at you. Why don't you and your kind just go back to Africa?
Well, if you tell me to go back to where I'm from, I'll consider. But then I'll have to buy 2 tickets. One for me and one for you.
Objection, what does that even mean? Sustained. What do you mean, son?
Well, the DNA of humans is trackable, and scientists have traced every person on this planet back to a single tribe in Africa. That means every human being comes from the same family tree called mitochondrial Eve.
No, please.
That's right. So this whole concept of pure blood is rotten. Pure blood only exists in Harry Potter. The truth is we're all mixed, and what we think of as race is just pigment.
Stop, please, stop.
No, I'm not gonna stop. See, dark skin just means more sunblock. It's got nothing to do with races. It just means your ancestors lived in places closer to the equator. The sun was stronger, so they needed melanin in their skin to make it darker. And lighter skin just means less protection, which is ideal in places where the sun emits less intense rays. It's just evolution, our bodies adapting to keep us safe. I say all that to say that, Mr. Race, I kind of agree with you. Races should never come together.
That's more like it.
Humans should. See, you force people into boxes their whole life. From the moment they're born, they have to check a box on school tests and census forms. We must break out of these boxes and show that race is not real. You are not real. And if we keep using words to separate, we won't win. No matter how you slice or dice it, it's gonna be us versus them. We are one human race, each with a colorless spirit inside. To define ourselves by races is to continue to live a lie. And no, we should not be colorblind. Do not close your eyes or deny the past, but realize we are one people with many stories. Forget the categories, make it clear. It's not about Black History Month. Let's make human history all year. So in my closing statement, we're asking for a life sentence for Mr. Race. Please do not grant parole nor bail, because if we continue to let him roam free, the truth is, we're just going to continue fighting ourselves. I rest my case.
can't think of anything more powerful than that, folks. We are just what my man says. We are human. White America, white civilization has put us into these boxes. White civilization has told us what's right and what's wrong about us. And unfortunately, once you can convince a bunch of people that there's something inherently wrong with them, then they'll continue to believe that. And that's the problem with that's one of the main problems that we have here in our society. We believe that something is wrong with us, that we are inherently crazy, that we are inherently below white men. I remember there was a time growing up with some of my elders way back when, in the early 70s, middle 70s, and late 70s, to where if we were going into town and if a white guy was walking past us, we would have to move to the other side of the street. Just not that he was afraid, just so you wouldn't have the chance of rubbing elbows with the white man or looking at a white woman the wrong way. Those are facts and realities. And again, it's something that really doesn't exist. White supremacy is the only religion that's not classified as a religion. But it is powerful in itself. Sunday is the most segregated time in our days on this earth. You got the black churches, you got the white churches, you got the Latino churches, you got the Korean churches. Everybody goes to their own church. Everybody worships their so-called own deity. But aren't we all supposedly, as we say, Christians, aren't we all worshiping the same deity? Isn't there supposed to be one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty, truth, and justice for all? How many black people can really say that? How many Korean folks can really say that? How many Japanese folks can really say that? But I bet you can load a room up with 100 white folks and they all can say that very thing. Are there some underclass of white America? Of course it is. But according to them, even the underclass of white America is better than the highest of black men. They always say, go back to your country. Told you. You would have to get 2 tickets, one for me and one for you. Because according to your carbon dating, according to your history, we all can be traced back to one village, not a couple of villages, to one village. That explains how a white man in Scotland could have ancestral roots. That explains our color. The majority of black folks, as you know it, they grew up in the continent of Africa, where there was always sun. There was no need to have hair covering your neck or your ears. There was no need to have small nostrils, because you need to intake as much air as you possibly can to keep that brain cooled. Whereas if you grew up in the Caucasus Mountains or places where it was cold, you wouldn't want to have a rush of air going up your nose. You would want to grow more hair to cover the most places where all the heat escapes from, i.e. around your neck. You would want hair to grow on your face. You would want all this, as they say, fur. But there's only one sector, and that's human. We as humans put each other in the boxes. If you look at the census, if you go back and look at the census from let's just take a year, 1985. Yeah, maybe every 10 years. So let's take 1980 to 1990, and then take 1990 to 2000. Census is done every 2 years, 10 years. Am I correct? So in those last 30, 40, 50 years, look at the census and see how many of those boxes have now either been added or changed. It used to be, are you black, or you white, or you of some kind of other descent? Now it's you're Pacific Islander, you're Asian Islander, you're black, you're African American black, you are what's biracial, you're this, you're that. They got this. It's like a smorgasbord of who you want to be when it comes to the census. And go way back into a little bit more into history. Remember the Dawes Rolls, that any white person with $5 can put themselves on this roll and become a Native American and get all the benefits of what they stole from the Native Americans. This is history, folks. This is our history. This is their history. They keep trying to divide it to black history into 1 month, but that's an absolute farce. Because we can talk about our history every day, not just in February. We got to take blame for that too. Oh, it's Black History Month. Some folks say that we should eliminate Black History Month. No, as long as we need to tell people that you need to acknowledge it, we should not eliminate it. You don't take the train off the track when it's running. Until folks realize that African Americans, Black Americans, are really the backbone of this country. We need to remind them, even if it's in 1 month a year, we need to remind them, flood their ideologies, maybe with all these different Black unity and Black inventions and Black pride that they're seeing plastered on Facebook and on sides of buses and in the news. Maybe reach one, teach one with that. Maybe we'll get a generation of one of the younger white Americans to say, you know what, that stuff that was going on in the 80s, I'm glad I wasn't a part of that, because that's an embarrassment for my culture. I don't see how you could tell me that this Black man or this Black woman is any less human than I am. But that's the belief that they had in us, folks, that we were less human than them. You know, it's written throughout history. Not once have you heard me mention anything about reparations, because that's a whole different pot. You got four pots on the stove. Turn some of them to a slow boil. Turn the heat up on another one. This is the time to turn up the heat on who we are and receiving our rightful place here in this country. White America is in chaos. We're not. White America is they're struggling over who's in power, who's trying to keep the power. And slowly but surely, you see folks like Cory Booker and one of those impeachment managers that was up there, the two impeachment managers that was up there. They made history, regardless of if it's good history or bad history. It's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, long after these folks are gone. Long after I'm gone, long after you're gone, somebody is going to look at these clips of those Black people taking down an American president. Do you think that could have been done in the 1980s? No way. The 50s? No way. The 60s? Absolutely not. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. Well, it's time to wake up from the dream, folks. Nothing come to sleepers but a dream. I didn't write that. That's the Gap Band. G-H-A-P. G-A-P. Gap. Green, Archer, and Pine. More history about us. Green, Archer, and Pine. If you folks don't know it, just go look it up. The Gap Band is, the Black Wall Street thing. Those are the streets. The Gap Band. More history right there in front of us, and all we thought that was just a band. We are covert in our ways sometimes too. The Negro spirituals that we sang to make it through a day of being whipped in the fields. The muddy waters that took the Negro spiritual from the fields to the jukebox. The plastic that we use every day, plastic spoons, plastic forks, plastic knives, the plastic on our belts and all these different things came from the mind of a Black man who really believed that soybeans had more value to it than just that. Or the peanuts. Black history every day, folks. Some of the simplest things that we take for granted every day in our life. But think about this. The very things that they said that we shouldn't have been doing, reading, learning to write. Imagine if we would have held on to that concept. How far in the dark ages would this country really be without us? How many wrecks would be at the crossroad? Or matter of fact, would there even be a car, period? Would there even be a telephone? Would there even be a computer? Would there even be such thing as open heart surgery? How about cancer research? How about HeLa cells? How about all the great things that black folks did in wars? In each and every war that we've had, somewhere along the line, the first person to put their life on the line has been a black person. But those folks that stormed the Capitol on the 6th called themselves patriots. There's nothing patriotic about what they were doing. And again, I'll say this, and I mean this with all fever, that if those were black people marching on the Capitol that day, there'd be a whole lot more funerals. Think of what J. Edgar Hoover did to Martin Luther King, did to the Black Panthers. Systematically destroyed our leaders. Anything that brought benefit to black communities, we got to put that on hold. We got to stop that. That's been the history of America. Whether you like what I'm saying or not, whether you agree with what I'm saying or not, you cannot argue with history, and you surely can't argue with facts. You can hide it, but you can't hide it forever. You got people right now, folks, right now, as we stand, thinking of a way of how they can go and fuck with a black person today. That is their sole mission. That's what they wake up for. And you heard it throughout this insurrection. Yeah, they were mad at Congress, but they were more mad at us. Jews will not replace us. BLM is a terrorist group, but they don't mark the KKK as such. They don't mark Antifa as such, but they go across the water and condemn other countries on human rights violations. And that's the pot calling the kettle black. How would they like it if one of those countries over there saw what was going on in our country and said, you know what, we need to send some troops over there because y'all ain't got a handle on it. So, we're going to go over there and eliminate your leader. We're going to get Joe Biden or Donald Trump out of office, whichever one is causing the most hell, and install the leaders that we want in your country. We're going to keep you under monitor. We're going to monitor your country for about 6, 7, 9, 10 years. Use up your resources, put your folks on trial, and then tell you how to live. This way of life is better for you. Isn't that what the Americans has done? They created war in Libya to get rid of one person. All right, this guy, these clips were saying, throughout the years, we all relished the Kennedy brothers. And if you were listening to the show on Monday night, Dr. Baldwin said that Robert Kennedy made a little speech saying, yeah, in 40 years, you guys, if you're good, you can have a president. Well, I guess he was right about that, because from 1968 to 2008 was 40 years almost to the day. Let's try this black experiment. They're not experiments. And you see how the majority of white America went absolutely bozonkers because of that. They really did. I can't believe that you guys put a black man in office. I can't believe that you put a half-breed as the vice president. So that means if the old white president dies, we're going to be ruled by a black woman, by a half-breed. I didn't make these things up. There was no such thing as a class of racism until the 15th century. I didn't make this up. This is known fact. We didn't invent the word nigger. We didn't invent the word bitch. Unfortunately, we still use them. But you see where its origins are from. So white folks, don't get mad when I point out some of your ancestors' fuck ups, because you're ready to point mine out. We all saw George Floyd murdered in front of us. But right after we talked about his murder, the next thing you know, you got people talking about what he did or didn't do, or he was in jail. So that means he should be murdered. That means he should be wiped out in front of us over a $20 bill. Where you got Karens running around knowing that there's a pandemic out there that's killing people, but they refuse to wear a mask. Those are the people that you need to be arresting. Just like when the AIDS epidemic was upon us. You know, if you went around and you had unprotected sex with someone and they found out that you had AIDS and you knew you had AIDS, that was a crime. That was a considered, what is that? Attempted murder. And they could hold that attempted murder over on you until that person died. Then they change it into capital murder because you knew that you had AIDS. What about the DJ that went around and knew he had AIDS and slept with as many black women as he possibly could? What about the Tuskegee experiment where they sent black men home to their families with syphilis? Don't get mad at white America when we point out your, I won't even say faults, your devilment. Don't get mad at me. I shouldn't, these things that I speak about, if we were all considered equal, I shouldn't be talking about these. I shouldn't be talking about how you had to make special laws in order to make black men a part of your military, even though we volunteered for it. I shouldn't have to talk about this if we all were created equal, as you say. But that's the thing. I'm going to get to this side of it. These folks that we got on these YouTube streets. Again, the internet could be a help or it could be a hindrance. It's all about how you use it. We got to sell some of our fellas, our black brothers and sisters over there that use this for one reason and one reason alone. 12, 13-hour streams on the airs and the ills of black society. Don't put your dirty laundry out there for everybody else to see. Don't do it. Or if you're going to do it, at least offer up solutions. And when I say offer up solutions, first, you got to reach one, teach one. You got to tell them about what you think is wrong or correct them about some information that they've put out there that is 100% wrong. In this case, you go a lot of these streams over there and the first thing they want to say is wrong with our country is single black mothers. That's what's wrong with this country. There's too many single black mothers. And that's the running argument. First, what was the high value man? Was it the six-figure guy that dude that does nothing but collect money, don't help out those folks that help him to obtain the six figures. Then you had the high value dude. Now you got these clowns who run around talking about, it's all a black woman's fault. A single black mama, these bitches ain't shit. Everybody ain't shit because they didn't want you. They ain't a baby mama because of you. Is that why they ain't shit? Because you sit on 12, 13-hour streams complaining about instead of doing something about? Telling anybody who will listen how many women that you have slept with or the reasons why you're not with them anymore? And consider that education, correction, and instruction. Well, let me show you some correction and instruction. And this has to do with, this is, as my man would say, it's probably going to be 6 minutes of fire. I think you folks will enjoy this. I've listened to this a couple of times this week. And for those of you that heard it before, Let's hear it again. Here's a little something from a good friend of mine. I call him Cerulean Gray from the Gray Initiative. Yeah. Here we go. Let's take a listen to this. Let me pull it up right quick, like.
Like 16th century. However, in the early to mid 19th century, the idea evolved into the racial classification system based on Johann Friedrich Blumenbach's theory of human races, which separated humans into 5 subgroups, which he claimed were Caucasian, Mongolian, Malaysian, Ethiopian, and American. In the mid to late 19th century America, that classification system was streamlined down to just 3 subgroups: Caucasian, Mongoloid, and Negro. This classification system, since its invention, has been the single determining factor for all social, economic, and political decisions made to create artificial impedances, excuse deeply rooted systemic and/or institutional discrimination and abuses, and policy changes that disadvantage specific segments of the U.S. population, specifically Native or foundationally Black Americans who are descendants of American slavery. That is the context. This is the abstract. In this American contemporary era, Black Americans have made great strides in progress. However, due to lack of wealth, resources, opportunities, and the erosion of the Black family unit, strides in further progress are greatly impeded. The answer is simple: racism. However, apologists for a majority white status quo have created a myriad of complicated and excusatory reasons to argue that it's not racism, but some other falsely contrived assumption. This is one of those assumptions, one we're going to destroy today. General quarters. All hands man your battle stations. Set condition zebra throughout the ship. Forward up to starboard, down aft to port. Brace yourselves for high-speed maneuvers as we engage hostile contacts. This is not a drill. Now let's get this over in 6 minutes. Race apologists for the white majority status quo argue that the reason the Black American community is stifled by impedances such as the lack of wealth, resources, and opportunities, and the erosion of the family unit is due to supposed increasing numbers of single Black mothers in conjunction with this straw-filled scarecrow many conservative and libertarian pundits and sock puppets alike have dubbed the welfare state. However, there is virtually no evidence of this being remotely true. In fact, extensive examination of the evidence finds the U.S. welfare policy greatly benefited or even created the white middle class, and even lifting the white middle class while excluding Black Americans. Yet despite welfare greatly benefiting whites, when the karmic pendulum makes its swing back the other way and the signs of white family erosion become more present and ever pervasive, neither the increase of single white mothers nor the welfare state fallacy are attributed to the very same phenomena affecting the white community. Instead, a white majority blames the government, despite the fact that it was the government that not only created the white middle class, but decade after decade ensured that the white middle class would be saved and lifted by the same welfare state. That is claimed to be the biggest solitary factor in the erosion of the Black family unit, and contributing to the increase in Black single motherhood by incentivizing Black women to avoid marriage. The very assumption is vacuously lazy at best, and at worst, a blatant display of racism in itself, as it implies Black women become single mothers by some personal moral failing, and white women become single mothers due to policy failures executed by the government. The reason is even simpler. In 1930, the total U.S. population was 122,775,000. Black Americans made up 11.8 million of the total U.S. population, or roughly 9%. In 1950, the U.S. population increased to 150 million, with Black Americans making up only 15 million, representing a 1% increase. Now fast forward to 1990, the Black population was double that of 1950 at 30 million, and yet still only represented 12% of the total U.S. population. In 1990, there were only 3.4 million Black American women who were single mothers, which is represented just over 10
to nearly 11% of the total black population. And now we fast forward to 2019, which is the latest census. The Black American community comprises of 42 million of the total U.S. population, and 4.1 million black women are single mothers. By percentage, there are fewer single mothers in 2019 than there were in 1990, representing about 9% of the total black American population. Yet when we look at just the 9-year period between 2010 and 2019, the black American population only grew by 3.1 million. This means when the straw man fallacy of the single black mother and citing 75% out of wedlock statistic, which is a numerical trick used to inflate the raw numbers. It's used to give the impression that 100% of black women have children, when the reality is the black American population only grew by 3.1 million between 2010 and 2019. The conservative and libertarian sock puppets are only talking about that 3.1 million, which is hardly representative of 75% of black women, but of black mothers. And if there are only 4.1 million black single mothers, then the percentile, we have to say, is basically used to intentionally misrepresent the data. In actuality, what this actually presents is that black women are having less children than they were having 80, 60, or even 30 years ago. Yet on the other side of the social spectrum, white females make up 2/3 of all single mothers in the United States. And yet white women are not blamed for these supposed personal moral failings. Neither is the conservative libertarian scarecrow known as the welfare state. Instead, the government is blamed. This very understanding itself is evidence of racism, which is the simple answer. The only evidential factor that can be attributed to the rise of single motherhood is the rise of population and the lack of moral responsibility by men who actually stand as gatekeepers of marriage. Single mothers in the United States are still a minority amongst the overall population, considering birth rates are rapidly declining amongst all demographics, and speaks to another deeper systemic issue, the otherism, if you will, that complements racism, i.e. sexism. Reality dictates that single motherhood is more reflective of the lack of male sexual discipline and responsibility. The fact that this narrative is so pervasive in modern society exposes the fact that men, for the most part, still control the narrative. Here are the facts. Less than half of single mothers have never been married, at 49%. That means 51%, which would be a majority of single mothers, are either divorced, separated, or widowed, while only 30% of single mothers have more than one child, which means women with more than one child are an even smaller minority group than the overall population of single mothers, which are already a minority.
Hostiles neutralized. Continue on normal course. Stand down, general quarters. Commence with ship's normal operations. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and be great. Stand by for further instruction.
Aye, Commander. There it is, folks. General quarters. We all have to do our part, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't believe what my man just said, now think about this. This was something from the mind of Cerulean Gray. So imagine if this type of information gets to our children. The way you hear the narrative now that black women are the most, black people in particular, black single mothers use the welfare system more than any other ethnic group in this country. Well, just based on this clip that we just saw, that's an absolute lie. That's an absolute farce. It isn't. So for you folks over there in these YouTube streets that want to blame the ills and wares of black, everything on black women and single mothers, it's time to get off that ship. Put the blame squarely where it belongs. If you want to talk about ain't shit single mothers, you got 2/3 of these white women out there that you can talk about. And then again, it's not like that. There's black women going out getting pregnant by just anybody. These women at one point in time were married. Now either divorced, separated, or widowed. So it's not like they went into it being single mothers. Now, do we have an ain't shit part of our society? Of course, and that's every society. Of course we do. We have those bottom feeders. Yeah, we do. There's no way around that. That's the laws of nature. But when you have evidence like this in front of you, this is the kind of stuff, like I said with Dr. James Baldwin, that's not reaching our children. This narrative will never get to anyone because more than likely, I would imagine, I'm sure just as I found this on YouTube and looked at the amount of times it's been watched, because there's no sex, no drugs, no rock and roll, no violence, no booty shaking in it, none of that. I'll click now. I don't want to see that. I'm gonna get off that and go find me an ass shaking video or a fight video or something like that. Even on Facebook, they got me this morning. I was thinking that I'm not a Don Lemon fan, but I clicked on it because they said Don Lemon was about to lose his job at CNN. I'm wondering why. Click on it. It was an advertisement for something completely different. The old bait and switch. Is that what we need to do to our folks to get them to pay attention? The old bait and switch. And put on a little bit, just right at the very end, put on a little bit of something. And so you're not wrong, completely wrong about what you told them. You didn't, dare I say, use a little white lie to get them to come and watch the video. It's not hard to find this stuff, folks. It's not hard to find your history anymore. The internet has become the great equalizer for us. We can fact check. We can find out. We can take all the things back into history, even so much so that this was something that we as black folks couldn't do at all at one point in time. We couldn't teach each other. That was a death sentence. Or did we forget that? Or is that so long in history are we supposed to forget? Are we supposed to say, that was during the time of slavery? You're absolutely right, Chandra. Solid rebuff to the argument of the single mother black women ain't shit argument. But somebody will try and pick it apart. And when they can't pick the argument apart, what they're going to do? They'll attack the man. They'll attack the messenger. In this case, they'll attack me or Cerulean Gray or whoever might potentially play this video somewhere. Just what happened the other day. As long as we were talking about content and comments that was benefiting everybody, black women, black children, black men, nobody had a problem with it until some of them stooges came over there talking about black women ain't shit. Why? Keep that to yourself. I happen to fancy black women. I do. They come in all shapes, all sizes, and all colors. They sure do. I happen to like black women because, I know they all adage my mama was black and I got 4 sisters. That's enough reason for me to enjoy the company of black women right there. Just the mere fact that I grew up and was raised by one. That's enough for me. Again, is there an ain't shit population? Yeah, I know. I'll take that though, Simply Neat. Let them call me, let them say I'm caping. But like Cerulean said, superheroes wear capes. Average man will never put on a cape. So if you can consider that to be a derogatory term by telling me I'm caping for black women, call me that some more, because I'm going to continue to cape for black women, even the ones that I don't know. Because I'll say it without any problem at all. The reason why I do what I do right now is from the help of black women. The reason why I sit where I sit right now on this homestead is through the hard work and ingenuity and the brain power of black women. So if they consider me caping or simping, that's fine. Let them think that. They can think that all they want. If that's the life, if that's the rock that they want to crawl up from under, go right ahead. But there's plenty of roaches up under them rocks too. Because as soon as you pick it up, what do? Scatter. They go look for someplace else to hide. I think that was kind of the same thing that happened the other day on that stream. Somebody came in there with some raid, and the roaches got the hell on. But again, folks, that's what I'm saying. When you throw stuff like this at them, when you throw absolutely positively the stuff that I'm talking about, this gray regime message right here, when you throw this at them and you tell them, what you're saying is incoherently incorrect. Oh, it can't be. Who are you? And then they go and start citing other this, blackdemographics.com. This and all of that. They want to throw these numbers at you from different times and eras. You got to be updated sometime because you don't know who you're dealing with, folks. You may not know who might know this very same information to you or more. I love to learn. I don't mind saying I'm wrong about something. I would imagine for some people that's the hardest thing to do, to admit that they're wrong about something. But I don't have a problem with it. Oh, correct me if I'm wrong. Please do. I don't speak on too many things. I have anyone who'll tell you that knows me personally. Well, I'll tell you the same thing. When a guy says he don't know about something, he just don't arbitrarily put his foot in his mouth. But I bet he went back and found out about it. So the next time he see you, he gonna ask you, or he gonna confront you very bad. And so I hope you got your ducks in a row. I hope you didn't tell him some BS, because he gonna find out about it. The worst thing you can do is believe everything anybody tells you. That's like when your man got up on the panel the other day, and I got to call him out, Mr. Faulkner, called out and said the black community that we know is dead. Maybe the black community that you knew is dead, but the black community that I know is alive and thriving. There's generational things going on around me. I've seen the next generation of my family going to greater and bigger heights. So where it started with my great-grandparents in the fields, they moved out of the fields to the houses, from the houses to out to the world. And I have nieces and nephews that are doctors, lawyers, politicians, on national news shows that you folks probably don't even know. Or you do know, but you don't know the people behind it. Some of the very shows that you folks watch every day, if you're watching the news like CNN and ABC, that's part of my blood that helps that get to your house. The very way that you pick up and receive UPS packages, FedEx packages, that came from the brain of somebody in this community. Because they made us write everything down while I was in the military. This is how we want this done. Write this down, write this down, write this down. You tell me everything you did this week, and sooner or later we're going to change that to standing operating procedures. But somebody also saw there was some profit to be made on that. So it went from tactical to practical. This is the kind of stuff that we need to teach our children, not putting a diamond in the middle of your forehead for $25 million or $26 million, how much of it was. And that's the news of the day. It's the whole thing. You can take a man out to do some fishing or whatever, or you can just give him the fish and let him be lazy the rest of his life, or you can teach him how to fish. Which one you would rather be? I would rather learn how to do something so I can become self-sufficient. Because one day you might be not there to give me the fish, or you might not have enough for yourself to give me one of your fishes. So teach me how to do it. That's what we as black people should be doing, reaching and teaching. When we do reach out to each other, I mean, what do we do sometimes? There's an ongoing battle of some on the YouTube streets of again, what the high value man is, or cam up. Those are the battles that are going on. Those are the streams that garner the most views. Not the black girl that graduated summa cum laude from her high school, or the first black Navy fighter pilot. You don't see that. It's in a passing in a post. Let me. I think I have one more clip for you guys over here. Let me see if I can pull this one up and be right back with you. Let me see what I'm gonna do with this. I think I've been playing them at the wrong place. That's why they've been acting up. Let me see here. Let me try this one. That's why they've been acting up, huh? Okay. You did me wrong, Lucille. All right, folks. Again, I'm gonna run this back down to one thing here. Here is some of the impeachment trial highlights. I know folks is like, well, why we get this? Listen, again, you have to know what your enemy's up to. You have to know what the other side is up to. I won't call them enemies, but you have to know what you're up against. And the reason why I watch so much of this coverage is not to see what they're going to do to Trump. I want to see those who are not going to do anything to Trump. Those are the ones that we need to pay attention to. Those are the ones that put up the most fight about why we shouldn't convict Trump and still holding these offices. Those are the ones that we need to be paying attention to. We need to be paying attention to the Marjorie Taylor Greens. We need to be paying attention to the Mitch McConnells and the Devin Nunes's and the other guy from Ohio. We need to be paying attention to Kevin McCarthy's, because those are the people that will be running office. I don't know if whatever they do to Donald Trump, whatever they do, and if they don't allow him to run for office anymore, any public office, okay, that's just one man that they took out the way. But think of how many of those senators, even after that attack, January 6th, still signed up to have this election overturned. Were they after the senators or were they after the power? How could they get the power? They had to negate whose vote? The black vote. They had to make Stacey Abrams seem like a monster. They had to make Kamala Harris seem like a monster. They had to make AOC look like a monster. They had to make Maxine Waters look like a monster. They had to make Cory Booker look like a monster. They had to make all these black Republicans and black Democrats appear to be monsters. Even Tim Scott, he even knew better.
Term that all of you people really came up with. We will stop the steal.
Standing before a crowd filled with people that were poised for violence, at his signal, he struck a match. And he aimed it straight at this building.
We simply cannot sweep this under the rug. We must take a united stand, all of us, that this is not American.
Nobody made Donald Trump run for president and swear an oath. He betrayed us, and as Representative Cheney said, it was the greatest betrayal of a presidential oath in the history of the United States of America.
Now, some people have argued that President Trump made a mistake, that he gets a mulligan. But we know President Trump didn't make a mistake. Because you see, when you or I make a mistake and something very bad happens, we would show remorse. We would accept responsibility. President Trump didn't do any of that.
The president praised a Republican candidate who assaulted a journalist as my kind of guy. He said there were, quote, very fine people on both sides when the neo-Nazis, the Klansmen, and Proud Boys invaded the city, the great city of Charlottesville, and killed Heather Heyer. And he said that an attack on a black protester at one of his rallies was very, very appropriate. Does that sound familiar?
I'm a former prosecutor, and we're trained to recognize lack of remorse. But it doesn't take a prosecutor to understand that President Trump was not showing remorse. He was showing defiance. He was telling us that he would do this again.
Hey, Poetic Nels, how you doing?
This again. That he and future presidents can run for national election, lose the election, inflame the supporters for months, and then incite an insurrection, and that would be totally appropriate.
When President Trump incited a lawless mob to attack our process, he was attacking our democracy. He was trying to become king and rule over us against the will of the people and the valid results of the election. For the first time ever in our history, a sitting president actively instigated his supporters to violently disrupt the process that provides for the peaceful transfer of power from one president to the next.
That's why lack of remorse is an important factor in impeachment, because impeachment, conviction, and disqualification is not just about the past, it's about the future.
To tell future.
How many of you folks saw the movie? I'm trying to think of the name of it right quick, like the Shawshank Redemption. And one of the very things they said that they needed from each and every prisoner that was considered for clemency or early release, you needed to show remorse. And if you didn't show any remorse, that means you didn't care about, you're not owning up to the responsibility of what you did. So we're going to keep you in jail a little bit longer till you become remorseful about what you did. On January 6th, at no point in time did Donald Trump show remorse of what was going on. Why would you? Because you sent these folks there. You sent these people with metal poles, bats. And again, folks, why was the Capitol so unprotected that day? Why didn't the police, when they saw all these people walking down the streets with 2x4s and big this and big that and metal poles and Dixie flags and Proud Boy shirts and all that, why didn't the police stop them? Why weren't more people arrested on the way to the Capitol building? Because this was by design. Again, you can't say this is all Trump's doing. He had to have people helping him inside the police department and as well as inside the government. Think about this. Go back to when you see more of this footage. Remember, a couple of days prior to this insurrection, there was one of our congressmen that had a tour in that building that should not have been there. That wasn't a tour to see how Congress did things. That was a reconnaissance tour. Just like this guy that you said he's a lawyer. He's been a lawyer for quite some time. Well, I've been a military man for quite some time. And I know a reconnaissance mission when I see one. January 5th, that's what that was, a reconnaissance mission. Intel. Unfortunately, it didn't work to their benefit because the dumbasses got ahead of the line and you just stormed. But it's just think, if the organizers would have been up front, the real organizers would have been up front, Mike Pence, Nancy Pelosi, and a whole lot of other folks might have met their demise on January 6th.
Presidents. That they can do exactly what President Trump did and get away with it. To set the precedent that this is an acceptable, now a constitutionally protected way to respond to losing an election.
Now, remember, President Trump told them to stand back and stand by at the debate. They took it as a call to arms. And when he called them to arms, they were all ready to act. They were waiting for their orders, which they got on January 6th. And as the crowd chanted at the rally, the crowd at the Capitol made clear who they were doing this for. They also chanted, "Fight for Trump." They were following his instructions. They said he had invited them. And in fact, as we heard, he had invited them. As one man explained on a live stream he taped from inside the Capitol, quote, "Our president wants us here. We wait and take orders from our president."
The siege of the Michigan State House was effectively a state-level dress rehearsal.
That's the part I'm glad we got to. We finally got to. That's what it was. Remember, we all was talking about this storming that Capitol building. That was what it was. That was a dress rehearsal. How much resistance we would get if we stormed one of these Capitol buildings. What would the American people say? And unfortunately, because they were dealing so much with Trump at the time, another one of these white supremacist moves that got swept under the rug. But that was a dress rehearsal. That's exactly what it was. That could have went on in any place in America. And more than likely, it probably did, but just not on the scale that it did in Minnesota. But that's what it was. How much resistance would we get from the police if we stormed this? And then you actually saw none. And if there was, it was only in words. These folks went to a building, a state building, with guns. You go back to the 60s and when Huey Newton and the guys went into the state building in California, a whole series of laws got changed after that. All kind of things was put on the books to prevent black folks from taking up arms. But meanwhile, the average white person in America can go to a swap meet, an open gun show their ID, and at any age can buy any weapon that they want. If you come to Charleston, South Carolina, there's a place called the Exchange Park of Charleston, South Carolina, i.e. the fairgrounds. Every year at the fair, right around October 15th, October 16th, for as long as I can remember living in this part of the country, there's always been a gun show there. I rarely see any police presence, but I see the parking lot. Imagine a 3, 4, 5, 6 acre place has all kinds of parking, but the parking lot is full to so much so that the parking is now spilled out onto the streets. All these folks going into these gun shows because they can buy these guns with little to no background check. And there they are in front of you. Look at those pictures, folks. Look at those well-armed militiamen. You can't call them military, they're militia. Look at them with their rebel flags. Remember how much hell we caught about talking about taking the rebel flag down from state buildings and state houses? That's why. That's exactly why. They still use these things. They'll still battle cries for them. Look at those pictures.
For the siege of the U.S. Capitol that Trump incited on January 6th. It was a preview of the coming insurrection. When responding to extremist plots in Michigan, Trump showed he knew how to use the power of a mob to advance his political objectives. The president says heavily armed extremists carrying Confederate battle flags and pushing past police to overtake the Michigan State House chamber are very good people and just negotiate with them. It's clear he doesn't think that they're at fault in any way at all.
When President-elect Biden went on television that day to demand an end to the siege, one woman asked this.
Does he not realize President Trump called us to siege the place?
When it became clear that Donald Trump was not going to save these folks from prosecution, when it became clear that the commander-in-chief had given false commands that went against this country, some of his supporters even expressed regret, and they said they felt duped. As more and more of these people have been charged, the confession and the regret simply cascades. More and more insurrectionists are admitting that they came at Trump's direction.
Hey, NBC News viewers.
My thing into all of these folks is simply this: is simply because somebody told you to do something, that doesn't excuse what you did. That's the problem I have with the news. They're trying to make it seem like just because Trump called you to go, told you to go to a place, that's what something that you had to do. You had to be there because it was the call of our leader. No, you didn't have to be there. You chose to be there. So you choose the punishment that you're going to receive. Well, actually, you don't get to choose the punishment, but you should get something. You should be counted as treason. There's no other word that we can use. I wish they would stop using insurrectionist because it was a treasonous act that they pulled that day, and that they're still pulling now by trying to cover up all these different people that should be arrested, that should be in some military jail somewhere. These aren't state crimes. These aren't city crimes. These are crimes against the country. These folks should be locked up. The jail should be overrun for the amount of people that was out there with all this facial recognition software that they have right now. That should not be a problem. What were you there for? Oh, I just wanted to see. Okay, we're going to give you a light punishment. Were you carrying a weapon? Yeah. Okay, well, you don't get light punishment. You go stand back in weapon line over there. Were you just taking pictures? Yeah, I was a reporter. Okay, well, you can go stand in that line over there. But everybody who was at that Capitol building that day, that stormed that Capitol, especially those first couple of waves, all of those folks should be in jail with charged with some kind of high misdemeanor and treason against this country. The country our ancestors built. Because that's what it boils down to. But, of course, the media and everybody else wants to give them a pass by saying, well, President Trump sent this here. He told us to fight. And then again, they were using another part of this laughable defense. They were trying to use the word fight that Donald Trump said against other, when you tell a football team to go out there and give it your best, you got to fight. They tried to use that, the words of some Democrats, to say you got to fight for health care, in this case, Bernie Sanders. They even tried to use Bernie Sanders' words as incendiary. And actually, it isn't. We all know what the difference is. Again, playing on your intelligence, as they feel they have a right to. You see how quickly it is that you can dupe dumbasses? I guarantee it. There's absolutely no way that Barack Obama would have been able to do the things that he did. There's absolutely no way that Bill Clinton would have been able to do the things that he was that was able to be done. You got all these senators, these high-ranking military officials, all these CIA, and all now they want to all come out of the woodwork, saying, Trump was wrong about this, but he was wrong long before this. Y'all didn't stop this. Y'all saw this coming, but none of you stopped it. None of you decided that what Trump was doing was so bad that we had to put a stop to it. Now it's coming out in the woodwork. You know what it is? Everybody wants to make money off Trump. Everybody wants to write a book about their experiences. Everybody wants to be on the bestseller list. Everybody wants to go viral. Everybody wants to have 15 minutes of fame. So we went through, the country itself had to go through 4 years of hell. Actually, now we're on our 5th year now. Now I ask anybody, with Trump in office, what got better for you as a black person, as a brown person? What got better for you? I'll wait. I just don't get the rhetoric and all the different things that we've talked about here today, folks. As far as folks talking about racism is no longer in existence because we got biracial couples. We had a black president. We've got black folks in Congress. It has nothing to do with it. It's still there. Someone said, I even said, no, the war on racism is still out there, but we've won some skirmishes. We've won a few battles. But again, I always take it back to this thing. If all men are created equal, and if that's truly the way you think, what's the purpose of putting new laws on the books to include everybody? If you take the Constitution for what it is, it's archaic. It should not be in existence. It should be a invalid piece of work. Because as what some white folks would say, well, that was then. Okay. That was good. That was during the times. Okay. But it's funny, that piece of paper is stretched over time to where it'll either help you or hurt you. Depends on what side of the Constitution that you're on at the time. So that's where the rework need to start out at. Not on a panel sitting in the White House. It needs to start right there. Right there, the Constitution. That's the framework of this. That's the train tracks that the American might runs on. The Constitution. So until we change that, we're just whistling Dixie, ain't we? It makes no sense. You can prove somebody to where they're absolutely wrong, but just according to the Constitution and how it's interpreted, that person gets away scot-free, because that's basically what we're arguing about right now, getting away scot-free with something. And I'm talking about the insurrectionists. I'm talking about the folks that actually went into the Capitol. So is racism dead? Absolutely not. Or our jails should be filled up right now. Folks taking planes to the Capitol, bringing folks with them. But remember that black supremacists, the BLM movement that walked down the Highway 78 in Stone Mountain. How many of them got arrested that day? It didn't take long for the leader of that particular uprising, as they call it. Didn't take long for him to be behind bars after that. So again, white supremacy is the only religion that isn't a religion, because it guides us. Those are the principles that the majority of white America, whether we want to say it or not, live by. Or it wouldn't have been that many people at the Capitol on January 6th. It wouldn't be the thing called QAnon. It wouldn't be the thing called Proud Boys. None of this stuff would be in existence. It's got to have legs. It had to move from one generation to the next. Just like the recipe for your grandma's sweet potato pie getting passed down, so is the recipe for racism passed down. You see them in the little pictures. You see the little boys and girls with the little bitty Klan robes on. Then you got the middle-sized Klan robes. Then you got the adult Klan robes. We just went out there in jeans and tennis shoes. But that's the life of this country, folks, whether we like it or not. That's the rule that we're under. And again, what's going on right now, it has the function of it. But just think, sooner or later, where's the backdrop going to fall to? It's going to come back to our shoulders. This is a fight that we don't need to be in right now. Let's sit on the sideline and see who comes up. See who comes out the victor. So I don't do much reporting on it. I want to see for myself. Does America have the moral fiber and the intestinal fortitude that they say it has? We will find out in a couple of days. Meaning, if they let Trump off, that's just opening the gate for the next demagogue to come through the door. But he's not going to be like Trump. He's going to be something that's a completely different animal. He could be there already. He could be Joe Biden already. I don't think so. Somebody's being groomed to take Trump's spot right now. And if you don't do something to Trump, You're inviting the next level of Trump to show up. It's going to be meaner. It's going to be nastier. These folks out here, if you look at the birth rate of white America folks, again, in 2024, under the age of 18, white boys will be outnumbered. So you know what that means. Their birth rate is at 0.0 something. You know what that means. If you're not producing, your population is getting older. So these folks are doing all they can for their survival now. And that means getting meaner. That means getting nastier. And that's exactly what's going on. Somebody asked me, do I think we've gotten better over the years? Not the life that I've seen. Yeah, we've made some advancements as far as financial and educational. Yeah, we have. But there's no difference in the racial killings that was going on in the 60s, the racial killings that's going on in 2021, 2020. There's no difference. They're still killing us. They're still being hung. Had a case where a kid in California talking about the news reported that the kid hung himself in a tree. Physically impossible for him to do, as they talked about the footage. But guess what? That's what they say. He hung himself. Don't get it. And normally I would open up the panel, folks, but again, today is birthday time, and I told my family I would only spend 2 hours on the show today. I'm a little bit late, behind schedule, but again, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to tune in today. Again, we'll do this next Saturday again, and we'll talk about some more about hidden history. And again, if you don't like what I say, only two things you can do. You can cut it off or, turn it down. Go find something else to watch or go find something else to listen to. But I think when you truth speak to power, there's going to be a lot of people that don't like what you say. And I think the clips that I used today doing this 2 hours spoke truth to power. You can't argue what Saruyan said. You can't argue with Dr. James Baldwin said. You can't argue with that these Karens will not go put on a mask for any reason. So when I'm wrong about something, please inform me, whether how big or how small it is. You don't learn, you can't learn from your mistakes if no one tells you about them. So with that, good folks, appreciate everybody tuning in today. I will see everybody on Sunday, a special Valentine's Day show for all the lovers and the folks out there that want to get a little cozy doing the Valentine's Day. I'm not a big Valentine's Day fan, but I'll be out there, do a little something. Hey, Vonda, how you doing? Good to see you, my sister. But I'll be making sure I play some good Valentine's Day music I'll start at about 4 o'clock and I'll go all the way up to 11. So I got about 6 good hours of some good music for you throughout the day. So with that, folks, got to get on up out of here. Time to go and get a slice of birthday cake, I guess. I got to watch my school figure. That's right. I still got a 6-pack. Y'all hear that? That's a 6-pack. You can wash your clothes on this. Anyway, have a great day, folks, and I'll see everybody on Sunday.